I always thought the mess would be metaphorical. Confetti, maybe. A wine stain. Hurt feelings. I never imagined my 36th birthday would end with my sister's palms slamming a 3-tiered chocolate cake into my face so hard that the world snapped into a blur of frosting and fractured light. The force was breathtaking. Not a playful smear, but a violent, two-handed shove that whipped my head back. I remember the sickening crack of my skull meeting the solid oak dining chair behind me, more than the cake. I remember the smear of buttercream in my eyes, the coppery tang of blood from my split lip mixing with the sickly sweet ganache. And above it all, I remember Sloane's laughter, bright, sharp, and perfectly deliberate as I hit the polished floor. "Oops," she chirped, her voice a melody of mock surprise. "Butterfingers." People rushed in only to shrug, to chuckle awkwardly. "It's just a joke. Sloane's being Sloane. Lighten up, Nora." While my vision pulsed with blue and white stars, I tried to believe them. I tried to stand, my dignity lying in tatters next to the shattered china plate. But the nausea that rolled through me was no joke. The electric pain shooting up my neck was not buttercream. My name is Nora Evans, and for 36 years, I was an expert at swallowing things. Small hurts, sharp comments, moments that should have felt like violations but were expertly rebranded as family fun. In our home, peace was a performance, and I was the supporting actress who never got a speaking part. I was the quiet one, the steady one. "Nora's so strong," my mother, Diana, would say with a sigh of relief. "She can handle anything." What she meant was simpler. Sloane needed the spotlight more. Sloane, my younger sister by 18 months, wasn't just the baby, she was the event. Loud, dramatic, magnetically chaotic. When she entered a room, my mother's face would illuminate as if someone had plugged her in. When I entered, I got a soft, polite smile, the kind you give the mailman. Sloane's moods were our weather, and Diana did everything to keep her sunny. I learned to live in the shadows, in the cracks between her tempests. I became a collector of accidents. The mysterious shove that sent me into the coffee table at age 10, the clumsy whisper after I tumbled down the stairs in high school with Sloane conveniently at the top. The luggage she insisted on carrying, only for the contents to be accidentally spilled at every family reunion. The refrain was always the same. "Don't be dramatic, Nora. Your sister loves you." So I stopped reporting the weather. I built a quiet life as a graphic designer in Seattle. I limited my exposure. But Sloane had a predator's instinct for finding my orbit. A dig about my job, a joke about my weight, a staged moment of humiliation disguised as camaraderie. Every flinch from me was met with the family chorus, "You're too sensitive. Sloane didn't mean it." That's why, even as I drove myself home that night, blood drying in my hair and a terrifying throb building at the base of my skull, a part of me, the trained, broken part, whispered, "Maybe they're right. Maybe you are overreacting. Maybe the pain is just bad luck. Maybe Sloane's grin was just poor timing." But lying in the dark, unable to turn my head without seeing sparks, a different instinct, deep and primal, began to scream. This was different. This was a line, crossed in icing and violence. And by the next morning, when I staggered into the emergency room alone, I would learn that instinct wasn't paranoia. It was a truth, finally cracking through the bone. The ER waiting room was a symphony of muted suffering. When I flinched at the fluorescent lights, a nurse with kind eyes bypassed the queue and guided me to a curtained bay. Dr. Chen was methodical and calm. "Follow my finger. Squeeze my hands. Touch your nose." The world tilted dangerously with each movement. "Let's get a CT scan," he said, his tone leaving no room for my ingrained apologies, just to be safe. Safe. The word felt like a relic from someone else's life. In the cold hum of the imaging room, I didn't think of cake. I thought of Sloane's eyes in the split second before impact. Not surprise, not mischief, calculation. When Dr. Chen returned, his calm was gone, replaced by a grave focus. He wheeled his stool close and turned the monitor. "Nora," he began, his voice low, "you have a hairline fracture at the occipital bone. Here." He pointed to a delicate spider-web line at the back of my skull. "It's not life-threatening, but it is significant." My breath hitched. A fracture from a birthday cake? He clicked a key, pulling up another image. "And this is older." He pointed to a faint, healed irregularity on one of my ribs. "This is a prior fracture. Based on the healing, I'd say 3, maybe 4 years old." 3 years ago. The staircase. Sloane, coming up behind me as I carried a laundry basket. A sudden, sharp impact between my shoulder blades. The world spinning, my side connecting with the edge of a step. Sloane's face hovering over me, filled with performative concern. "Oh my God, Nora, you're so clumsy. You just slipped." The searing pain I'd hidden, believing her, swallowing ibuprofen like candy for weeks. Dr. Chen watched the understanding and the horror dawn on my face. Without another word, he reached for the phone on the wall. "I need to make a report," he said, not to me, but into the receiver. "Adult female, suspected non-accidental trauma, evidence of prior injury." The formal, clinical words hung in the air. Non-accidental trauma, not a joke, not a prank, a crime. He hung up and met my gaze. "Nora, the pattern here, someone has been hurting you." The door opened before I could process the vertigo of that statement. A woman in plain clothes entered, Detective Reyes. She had a steady presence that seemed to quiet the chaotic energy of the ER bay. "Nora, I'm Detective Reyes. Dr. Chen's report requires me to ask you some questions." She didn't say, "about your sister," but the unspoken name vibrated in the space between us. She asked about the party, the guests, the alcohol. She asked where Sloane was standing. And then, the question that unraveled my last pretense. "Has anyone ever discouraged you from seeking medical care after an injury?" The memory was a physical blow. Sloane pressing an ice pack to my ribs 3 years ago, her voice a sly whisper. "Don't be ridiculous, Nora. The ER's for emergencies. You'll waste everyone's time and money. You just bruised it. Don't be so dramatic." "Yes," I whispered, the word tearing out of me. "Every time." Detective Reyes's pen stilled. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw not pity, but a fierce professional recognition. "She isolates the injury," Reyes said softly. "She controls the narrative. She makes you doubt your own pain." It was a diagnosis more accurate than the CT scan. The curtain ripped back. My mother, Diana, stood there, her face a masterpiece of outraged propriety. "Nora Elizabeth, what is this nonsense? A fracture from a little birthday fun?" She turned to Detective Reyes, deploying her most charming, dismissive smile. "Officer, there's been a misunderstanding. My daughter's roughhouse. Nora has always been fragile, bruises easily." The old script, the ancient gaslit liturgy. But this time, I didn't look down. I looked at my mother and then at Detective Reyes. "I want to continue," I said, my voice clear in the sterile air. "I'm not confused." In my mother's stunned silence, I finally saw the truth. Her loyalty wasn't to peace, it was to the easier story, and I was done living inside it. Detective Reyes swiftly escorted my sputtering parents to the waiting room. The space she created in their absence was the first safe one I'd felt in years. "The pattern you've described is textbook, Nora," Reyes said, her tone factual, anchoring. "The accidents, the minimization, the gaslighting, the isolation from care. Combined with this new injury and evidence of an old one, we have grounds to open an investigation. We'll subpoena the restaurant's security footage from last night." She leaned forward. "The most important question now is, do you feel safe?" The simplicity of it shattered me. Safe? I had no framework for the concept. My safety had never been a variable in the family equation. "I don't know," I admitted, and it was the most honest thing I'd ever said to an authority figure. "That's your answer," she nodded. "For now, you shouldn't be alone. Is there someone outside the family you can call?" There was. My college friend, Nora, who'd witnessed Sloane's jokes and had long ago stopped finding them funny. "Yes," I said. As I was being discharged with strict instructions and a referral to a neurologist, my Aunt Claire, my mother's younger sister, appeared in the hallway. Her face was pale, etched with a resolve I'd never seen. "Nora," she breathed, pulling me into a careful hug. She looked at Detective Reyes. "I need to speak with you, both of you. It can't wait." In a quiet consultation room, Claire's hands trembled as she spoke. "I've seen it for years. I told myself it was just intense sibling rivalry, but I knew." She looked at me, her eyes swimming with guilt. "When you were 12, that fall down the porch steps, Nora, I was looking out the window. Sloane gave you a hard, two-handed push from behind." The memory flooded back. The shock of the fall, the scraped knees, Sloane's wails of, "I tried to catch her," that redirected all comfort toward her. Claire wasn't finished. "And the Victorian house? Your grandmother's cottage she left to you." My grandmother Eleanor, the only one who ever saw me clearly. Sloane was furious. I heard her on the phone after the will was read. She said, "Accidents happen, and if something happened to Nora, I'd be the natural heir to manage it all." I thought it was just bitter ranting. Now, I don't know what to think. Detective Reyes's expression was granite. "Thank you, Miss Evans. This is crucial." 2 days later, Reyes called. Her voice was tight. "Nora, we have the footage. It's incontrovertible. She checks behind her, waits for you to be perfectly positioned, and uses her full body weight. It was assault, pure and simple." A pause. "We also executed a search warrant on Sloane's laptop. We found a file. It's a log. Dates, descriptions of your past accidents, and a heading labeled Future Considerations. It notes your running routes, your weekend habits." The room swayed. It wasn't just chaos or cruelty. It was premeditation, a cold, sustained campaign. "We're moving to arrest her," Reyes said. "We'll do it at a family meeting. It needs to be witnessed. The fantasy needs to break in front of everyone." The family meeting was my mother's idea, a pathetic attempt to clear the air and get me to drop this hospital misunderstanding. We gathered in her pristine living room, the site of so many previous surrenders. Sloane held court, sparkling with vindication. "I'm just glad you're okay, Nora," she said, oozing condescension, "even if you did cause a huge scene over nothing." Diana patted her knee. "We all know you didn't mean it, sweetheart." Then the doorbell rang. Detective Reyes entered with 2 uniformed officers. The air turned to ice. "Sloane Evans," Reyes announced, her voice cutting through the room's fragile peace. "You are under arrest for assault in the 2nd degree." The eruption was instantaneous. Diana shrieked. My father stood up, sputtering about lawsuits. But Sloane? Sloane's mask didn't just slip. It exploded. "You're arresting me?" she laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "For her?" She pointed a shaking, manicured finger at me. "She's the pathetic one, the weak, boring little mouse who somehow convinced Grandma to give her everything." "Sloane, stop," Diana pleaded, but it was like trying to halt a tornado. "Why should I?" Sloane screamed, her eyes locked on me with pure, undiluted hatred. "You ruined everything the day you were born," she spat at me, her voice raw with a lifetime of venom, "and you were too stupid to even see it." They led her, kicking and screaming a torrent of invective, out of the house. In the ringing silence that followed, I looked at my mother. Diana was staring at the empty space where Sloane had been, her face a blank page of utter devastation. The fantasy she'd curated, the narrative she'd fed upon, had just been devoured by the monster she created. The legal process was, mercifully, quiet. Faced with the security footage, her own digital diary and witness statements from Claire and others Sloane had bragged to, she took a plea deal. Supervised probation, mandated psychological evaluation, a permanent restraining order. The aftermath was a different kind of fracture, one of silence and slow, painful realignment. Diana entered therapy, not for Sloane, but for herself, for the blindness she'd called love. We speak now in careful, fragile sentences. The trust is gone, but the truth is finally present. I moved into my grandmother's Victorian cottage. Restoring it became my therapy. Sanding down old layers, repairing broken moldings, letting light flood into dark corners. Last month, I put up a sign, the Eleanor Center, a space for healing and creative renewal. It's a sanctuary for people learning, as I did, that the deepest bruises aren't always the ones you can see, and that the bravest thing you can do is finally believe the pain you feel is real. I learned that family isn't a hostage situation. Loyalty that demands your silence in the face of your own destruction isn't love, it's cannibalism. My peace was not found in forgiveness, but in the profound, unshakable quiet that arrived when I stopped apologizing for existing. The fracture in my skull healed. The one in my family may never fully mend. But I am whole, and for the first time in 36 years, I am safe.